We good? All right. It is August 4th. You are at the North Bend School District Board meeting, and I'm your host tonight, Jim Jordan. Thank you for coming. Let's see. We will start out with the flag pledge. To our left. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll have the roll call. I see Christina Simpson to my left, Julie Thies, Mary Schilling, and Jim Jordan here. Eric and Steve had other obligations tonight and are absent. Item 2, approval of the agenda.
We'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
Second, so there is a motion to approve the agenda. Are we all good with that?
Aye.
Okay, well, everyone voting aye, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the agenda is approved. Item 3, board leadership election. We'll go ahead. We will start that. And are there any nominations for the board chair?
I nominate Jim Jordan to be chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, there's one nominate. Are there any other nominations for the board?
Do we do them all at once?
No, just you go one at a time,
Okay.
board chair. So no other nominations. I guess with that, we will go ahead and have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? So we have a quorum of 4, so 4-0 on that. B, board vice chair. Do we have a nomination for the vice chair?
I nominate Julie.
I will second that. Are there any other nominations for the board vice chair? Okay, with that, we will have a vote. All in favor of board vice chair Julie Thies for that position, say aye. Aye. Okay, 4-0. Okay, item C, board second vice chair. Are there any nominations for that position?
I nominate Christina Simpson.
Is there a second? There's a second. Any other nominations for board second vice chair? Okay, with that, we will have a vote for the board second vice chair, Christina Simpson. All in favor, say aye.
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 Yeah, that's sweet. I vote for myself.
I think you have to vote for yourself. 4-0. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for the humility.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't pass if you don't vote for
Yeah.
yourself.
Aye.
So,
You have a majority if you.
yeah, we had to have 4. Okay, that is the board leadership election. With that, I will go ahead and repeat the oath. So those, Julie and Christina, if you'd say your name right after an I, so I say, I, Jim Jordan,
Julie Thies.
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the state of Oregon and the laws thereof and the policies of the North Bend School District. During my term, I will faithfully and impartially discharge the responsibilities of the office of school board member to the best of my ability and will bear in mind always the welfare of the children entrusted to the school district.
I will.
All right. Okay, moving on this evening. Okay, public participation. Item 4, do we? There's no participation. We will, no public participation. We will move on then. Item 5, communication. A, board reports and communication. Your silence is no. B, student representatives to the board.
Not joining us quite yet.
Already, okay. C, association reports, North Bend Educational Association report, Eva Varga.
Guys are coming to the big table, huh? So I guess I will first introduce myself. Some of you know me. My name is Eva Varga, and presently I am the English Language Development Specialist. Basically, my role has multiple titles. I teach ELL, I teach ESL, I teach the multilingual learners. Previously, I've worked with the North Bend School District as a 5th grade teacher, as well as an elementary science specialist. As parents and educators, it's important to help each child to develop and adapt to the many, social, emotional challenges that they will encounter as they grow into adulthood. And every opportunity and situation can be driven into a teachable moment. I strongly believe that there's teachable moments every day. And one key factor to language development, for example, that is often overlooked is play. So there are many times we are so busy as educators or even as parents, we're trying to force sounds, phrases, words, and sentences into our child that we forget that children may progress naturally and oftentimes even more rapidly during the child's playtime, because this is a time when they are relaxed. They are not having to perform in front of others or for anyone, and often they're more open to learning without even realizing it. So I was fortunate this past week to teach summer school along with numerous other educators. We've been having a lot of fun teaching summer school, and I witnessed firsthand the joy of discovery and the learning that was taking place this summer. So I'd like to provide you with just a glimpse of what I saw from my group this week. So my students, there were approximately 15 each day. The number varied slightly with absences, but there was approximately 15 incoming 3rd graders. So they've graduated from 2nd grade and they're moving into 3rd grade. And this week our focus was on nature journaling. As a former elementary science specialist, nature journaling is like my passion. One of my passions anyway. So we've spent a lot of the time observing nature, getting outside, going on walks. The kids have asked a lot of questions, and my goal for them was to impart the questioning strategies of I notice, I wonder, and it reminds me of, and to put those awarenesses and observations into their journal, not only with words, but with pictures as well as numbers. So collecting data, observing and recording what they're seeing, but also sketching it and labeling what they see. Today, we went on a field trip to Bluebill Lake, and we walked out, if you've ever been there, but we walked from the trailhead to the south end of the lake where there is like a raised platform. It's not really a dock, but we all called it a dock. So this wooden elevated platform, and the water level at this time of the year is pretty low. And so the students were able to access either side of the lake and actually get in the water. And I had, of course, put some restrictions on what our boundaries were and how deep we could go. And I was just very impressed with every single one of the students. Not one of them pushed the boundaries. They were all within the expectations, and they were all engaged in what they were doing because it was very much like play for them. And so I had brought with me, and they also were so eager to help me carry everything. Thank goodness, because there was 2 super long dip nets for small dip nets, a couple of white like camping wash tubs. We had some ice trays, and we had I don't know, it's a little container within which is contained a little tablets for dissolved oxygen, for pH, and inside the little container is a sushi dish for testing turbidity, and there's a thermometer. So we were doing chemistry as well as life science, and the kids just had a blast. We found not caterpillars, dragonfly larvae, as well as dragonfly nymphs. We found frogs at all stages of development from egg to adult, and we found damselflies and dragonflies. And we also had time to record what we had seen. We had about a half an hour to do some journaling. And so I would be willing to bet that those kids are going to remember the difference between a dragonfly and a damselfly, because they got to hold them and touch them and see them fly, rather than reading about it in a book. So anyway, awesome summer school. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. 5D Superintendent Report, Kevin Bogatin.
Thank you. Well, I want to start by just recognizing last night, the district met for our 7th meeting as we worked to negotiate a collective bargaining agreement with our classified bargaining unit. I want to thank our dedicated OSCA representatives who are at the table working through an updated contract. I want to express my appreciation for our entire classified workforce and want to reiterate the messages shared by the OSCA team that our classified staff are essential to the success of our schools and our students. While we haven't reached an agreement, I want to express the desire of the district to reach a mutually agreeable agreement in the near future and look forward to our next meeting. I also want to thank our district team, our board member liaisons, Jim Jordan and Julie Thies, for their participation in this work. It does take a lot of time and volunteer work, so we appreciate that. And I think we're looking forward to coming to a resolution on that soon. I also, as we begin August, we're welcoming back our school secretaries and building administrators. Amy Elliott and Joe Frischman are organizing a meeting for this group to gather in the high school library for a welcome back update from all of our district departments. The preparation for the start of school happens weeks in advance, and I want to thank this dedicated group of professionals for their hard work. Without them, we don't have the backbone of our schools. They're the ones who make sure everyone is registered, has what they need for a smooth start. Again, thank you for all you do. Next week, our district leadership team will be gathering for a day-long retreat to reconnect, develop leadership skills. This group includes our building principals and district level administrators and managers. This year, we'll be visiting the Cocoa Indian tribal lands. Our team will have an opportunity to learn more about their history and heritage of the Cocoa tribe, tour tribal facilities, and learn how we can better connect to serve our Native American families and students. In June, North Bend High School senior Kian Pryor won the U.S. High School Bowling National Championship in Louisville, Kentucky. Kian was crowned national champion for the boys singles tournament. North Bend High School had 12 Bulldog bowlers compete at the national championships, and the boys team finished 15th out of 51 teams. In early July, Mayor Jessica Engelke announced a recent grant the city received and announced that their first activity to be funded would be the Kian Pryor National Champion Bowling Camp, free 9-week bowling camp. It's been open to Coos County youth ages 5 to 18 on Sundays and Wednesdays from 4 to 8 p.m. at North Bend Lanes in July and August. The camp honors North Bend High School I said high school graduate. He's actually a junior, so he will be senior, high school senior Kian Pryor. The bowling camp included free bowling, free shoe rentals, free hot meals, and personalized instruction from Pryor and North Bend championship bowlers. I want to just congratulate Kian again and the rest of the North Bend High School bowling team. Great day to be a Bulldog, right, Mike? This summer, you might have heard about the city of North Bend putting together and advertising K-12 activities for North Bend students, including Movie in the Park. That's on Friday, August 12th at Fair Road Park at 6 p.m. North Bend Big Rig Bash on Saturday, August 13th. That's at North Bend Community Center on Broadway Avenue from 10 to 4. And the city has also coordinated tours of the Charleston Marine Life Center and transportation to the Coos County Fair that included unlimited rides, admission, and lunch. A huge thank you to the city for their continued support of North Bend students and families. And finally, tonight, I just want to briefly update on summer school. Our summer programs come to an end next week. And every report I've received has been nothing but positive. That doesn't happen by accident. I want to thank all of our staff, teachers, educational assistants, cooks, custodians, maintenance, bus drivers, and our summer planning team for putting together an amazing summer program for kids at all levels. We will return to the board with a more comprehensive summer overview at an upcoming meeting. Our official summer offerings come to an end, but we will still look forward to welcoming back our kindergarten students for their early introduction to school. This program is designed primarily for students who have not had preschool experience, but all registered kindergarten students are welcome to attend. This year, both of our elementary schools will offer a 2-week kindergarten program on August 15th through the 18th and August 22nd through the 25th from 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. Monday through Thursday. These sessions are taught by some of our kindergarten teachers and joined by educational assistants as well. Kindergarten routines, expectations, and activities are explored during their time together. And we hope that will be a nice, smooth and kindergarten transition. So that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Item 6, action consent agenda items. Before we make a motion on just a couple things, Ann Barker is resigning, math PE teacher, North Bend Middle School, 26 years. I've known Ann and her kids. She is a great woman, and I'd like to thank her for staying with us as long as she did. Yeah, she's been a blessing to this, the community, and her kids, which are many also. A lot of Barkers. Item F on the consent agenda. So the consent agenda is a page and a half, which is long. So item F is approve annual business. So there's a lot of items that, and that's an identification process to meet legal requirements. That's why all that's on there. So with that, is there a motion?
Well, is that where our next meetings are? Is our next meetings are on the consent agenda, correct? Where is that? I can't find it.
Number item 12, information only is our next meeting.
Oh, that's where the calendar is for it.
Is the official calendar?
Yes, the calendar, the draft of the calendar is in the consent agenda, and it is item B, 6B.
I would make a motion to pull that out of there so we can have reconsideration for the dates, if that would be okay.
Is there a second for that motion?
I can second that.
Okay, so do we want to have any debate on that? Or just want to move to a vote?
You just pull it out and that's,
Pull
you
it,
pull it
okay.
out, yep, and you'll just vote on it separately.
Done. It's
Thank you.
removed. Done.
And other than that, I make a motion to pass the consent agenda. Second.
Second. There is a motion to pass the consent agenda. We will vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passed 4-0. Moving on in the agenda, item 7, energy savings.
So let's do that consent agenda item right now then,
Right now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, for the.
for the calendar.
Okay,
Like-
so,
I
I would-
want to change.
there's a few dates on here that we want to change.
Well, or just have clarification, so in September, we don't meet till 15, is that because school is starting and you wanna have a week or two behind us?
Yeah, we tend to, again, when we have all of our administrators come, I mean, again, we could do it earlier. That's really, I've kind of tried to stay away from that first, well, the first one would be the 8th. So that is the first week of school, first days of school. It's not impossible. We could, again, when I'm trying to ask if, I don't know what our agenda is for September. But if we ask people to come and present, it's one of those that, again, trying to give people a little bit more time to let them focus on start of school instead of an evening coming to a board meeting. But again, we could move it up to the 8th. I don't think that would be,
It
that-
also looks like it might. Regarding continuing board member. We're gonna be having earlier meetings prior to the 15th. To a work session, right, to go through the process of board appointing.
Do we push it out the following week? I don't know what week that is, the week after.
yeah, I think we were tentatively scheduling, if we get later in the agenda, around a meeting on the 8th to discuss the vacancy and kind of review applicants and those prior to the meeting on the 15th. Are you suggesting moving it from the 15th to something else?
Yes, like still having that meeting on the calendar where we discuss that process, but then moving the actual board meeting to a further date.
Is the 15th a conflict? Is
I
that one?
was actually okay with the 15th, I just was wondering why it was later, but now
Mhm.
there's clarification on
Mhm.
why.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, everyone else.
I'm okay with, yeah.
No, fine.
Okay. And we're adding the 7th to this calendar would maybe later, but you guys will vote on, or we'll discuss that later. Or the 8th, right? The 8th. Okay.
Or the regular board meeting on the 15th.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right, and then how about December 8th, because I think we usually have it the first Thursday. In December.
That is, so the week prior, so again, this is more of a district, that is at the annual law conference. I believe is Thursday, Friday of that week.
Okay,
Is that accurate? Thursday, Friday of that week is law conference. So again, we won't have really admin. That is one that I usually like to go to. I mean, I want some of our other folks to be at that. So that's the reason.
I'm okay with those then.
I'm okay with the rest of all the dates on here.
The work sessions that are on the 4th Thursdays.
those are just harder for me to make, but if that's the way it has to be, then that's the way it has to be, but,
Are there some that you're looking at that are
the
January?
January 26th, I think February 23rd and March 23rd are all the fourth Thursdays for the work sessions.
And August 20th.
And again, I think the only, if you could do a January 5th, which is when we come back in the first week back, right after break. We tend not to do back-to-back board meetings, so that's kind of why you see a couple of those. The February 9th, I think the only reason, again, that was done that is because of what we did in January. So it was more, if we have a meeting on the 26th, then if we did the first Thursday, we're into February 2nd. So that's why it moved to the 9th. So
Would it be, for the work sessions, could it be on like the third Thursday?
it certainly can, if you guys, it's just back-to-back meetings for you guys. I mean, we're pretty flexible and do whatever you want to do.
There's one it would be every other, wouldn't it? Would it be at back to back? Would that be?
Well, a couple of them would be back-to-back.
Yeah.
If we leave the second, like in December or in that February, if you leave it at
Oh, gotcha.
the 9th, then we could do the 16th, but back-to-back is fine by us. And those are tentative. We technically, they're
Right.
special meetings that we don't really have an agenda for. We're not
Right.
any big planning things ahead quite yet. So, but we could do back-to-back. It's up to you guys. Well, I guess it's up to 4 of you now.
You think that'd be cool, or it doesn't matter? I mean, it's fine, either way, it can be, I just wanted to talk about it and not just throw it in the consent agenda and say, oh, well, it is what it is.
Is this something too that I feel like we need to discuss it with the other board members just to get their
We can-
idea of what they feel like might be
Yeah.
best for the dates, and
Yeah.
maybe we can.
We
push
can bring
this
it back
longer.
again.
Yeah, are you guys
That's
okay with just
Kind of
pushing
what I
this out
thought was
and
gonna happen. but yeah.
discussing with her? and
Yeah,
Stephen too?
yeah.
Okay.
We can put it on a future with September agenda
Yeah.
and bring it back again.
Yeah.
Second work session.
I think that would.
We
be
could-
a
We
good
have time,
idea,
sure.
too.
We could add it to the work session to figure out
Okay.
and then come back and formally adopt it. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm good with that.
All right. Thank you. Good discussion. Okay, next item on the agenda, 7, energy savings performance contract. Johnson Controls, and there is an action.
There is an action to this. So as they're kind of coming up, they have a PowerPoint, it's a presentation. I think the cover sheet on this was fairly hopefully explained this process and what we've done. Really, we began, I got forwarded Johnson Controls and David specifically kind of connected through Southwestern Oregon Community College through Dr. Patty Scott. They had done a project that we're talking about, and they had done that at the time. They have kind of a similar story, aging buildings, some needs, can't get additional state funding. So they were looking at creative ways of accomplishing kind of some outdated systems in their buildings on campus at the community college. So they have been worked over the last kind of a couple of year project and have experienced the savings that you're going to hear about the process of this. I think probably one of the key pieces, and you'll hear it a few times tonight, and I'll just reiterate, we are looking to do an upgrade without the passing of a bond, continue to move forward with some of our long-range facility planning needs. Long-range facility planning needs, obviously without a bond, but the needs are still there. We heard just even in bargaining, it was kind of warm in some of our buildings, but just the variable temperature that exists in some of our buildings. Again, we know we need some work. It may not solve 100% of our issues, but going after some better quality controls, better energy efficiency. And so the big key to this is that the money that we save in energy will pay for these upgrades. And so ultimately, I'll pass it on to these guys. They have a little presentation and take some questions and kind of go from there. So you guys introduce yourselves.
Thank you, Kevin. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. My name is David Nellis. Of course, I'm with Johnson Controls. I'm joined by Mark Recorders, one of our engineers. And then remotely, Peter White, our area sales manager, is watching the proceedings. I want to thank the board for allowing us some time today. And to Kevin's point, we do a lot. Actually, we do a lot of work with. Not only did we do with a nice project over at SWAC, but we do a lot with K-12 with a lot of school districts. And I was just at the WASBO conference last week, as well as Tim. And one of the things that I hear a lot about is that districts are horribly underfunded when it comes to upgrading facilities. And there's a direct correlation between condition of facilities and educational performance. And so when we think about whether it's boilers or rooftop units or lighting, these are all kind of equipment things that are that not a lot of people can relate to. What we relate to really is driving educational outcomes. And really the results of a classroom that's been modernized from something that is mid-century to something that's in the 21st century has a lot of different ripples of benefits, meaning that health and security can be improved within your schools. The performance in the classroom through better lighting, through better air quality, through added comfort helps to promote performance among students. There's a budget certainty that also comes when you don't have these shocks to your system with unexpected repairs or equipment that's failing. You now have new equipment that's more reliable and can be trusted to perform when it's needed to perform. Think about even staff retention. How do you attract the best educators in the state if your facilities are subpar or substandard? There's also a cost containment aspect. If we're able to help you reduce the amount of utility spend that you're making, or the amount that you're spending on operational and maintenance costs, there's a benefit to getting your budgets in line and being able to handle that. And finally, it's really about kind of a bigger picture of sustainability and better resiliency for the school district, meaning that we're at Johnson Controls, we're really focused on and targeting how do we eliminate waste within your budget. And a lot of times that waste is being spent on unnecessary repairs or substandard equipment. So when we go through this kind of presentation, and I'll be super brief, as brief as I can be, because I get very passionate about this stuff. Think about really the broader implications and not just we're replacing lighting or we're replacing a rooftop unit or a boiler, okay? So, move on. Sorry, are you? Okay, very good. So quickly, here's the agenda. We're going to talk about some of the goals that Johnson Controls has discussed with Kevin and his team. When we talk about district health, we're not talking about health like you would have with a medical doctor. We're talking about health as far as buildings and their performance. We are going to, based on our time that we've spent on campus, the short period of time we've had on campus, looking at all your buildings, we've kind of put together some proposed solutions for you to think about. We're also going to introduce to you what is called an energy savings performance contracting, which is a contracting vehicle that the state of Oregon and the Department of Energy has endorsed for all public entities to consider and use to help upgrade their facilities. So it's not just for K-12, it's also for local government and higher education. And then I'll briefly talk about Johnson Controls and how we are a turnkey design build approach or a contractor, and why that makes sense and why there's a benefit to that. I'll take some questions and answers, and then of course there's a board resolution at the end of that. So without any questions, I'll move forward. So we talked about project goals. Again, you folks have been through kind of the ups and downs and the tough ride of having to go out to bond to raise capital. All school districts need capital, and not every school district can bond their way out of a situation. Unfortunately, there is a gap, whether it's a wealth gap or what have you, between some of the schools that have and some that have not. And so we talk about project goals. Again, what's leading with this is the learning environments. How can we improve the comfort, the health? How do we raise student achievement and educator retention? We're also looking to reduce energy and operational costs. So I get back to cost containment. Budget certainty and resiliency is also a key factor. And then one of the things that we do as a company that's rather unique is that we'll leverage a lot of outside funding that's available. So part of how we work with a client, like a school district, is to really get into your budget and see if we can find revenue to pull out of it that we can use to help purchase new equipment and make repairs with. But we also leverage funds that are available outside of your organization. So that could be grants, that could be utility rebates. Right now, you guys are collecting SB 1149 funds, which is a byproduct of PG and Pack Power and having a public purpose charge. You have funds sitting in your account that you can leverage. You also have ESSER funds available to you. So we provide expertise and kind of consulting on how we can pull together all these different revenue streams to allow you to make substantial improvements to your buildings without having to go to the taxpayers and having it all done within house, basically.
So do you
Yeah.
actually seek out the grants and apply for them?
We have a specialized group that can scour either the state or federal grants or what have you, based on the scope of work that we're looking at. And we do, when we put together a scope of work, it's all done in consultation with the district. I mean, we are not necessarily putting a plan together and pushing it to you guys. This is a collaborative effort. It's kind of a push and a pull. What's important? How do we set up our priorities? And how do we make that work within a financial model, you know? So yes, we do a lot of the heavy lifting so the district does not have to. And we have a lot of our fingers are into these sort of revenue streams and programs so that we can leverage and utilize. Okay. So moving on to district health. So Johnson Controls currently has kind of a slogan right now called Healthy People, Healthy Places, Healthy Planet. What that really means is that we're in the buildings business. What we focus on is the health of occupants and buildings. When it comes to healthy places, how is that building performing? So is it costing you extra money or is it saving you money? And then the healthy planet aspect of it, which means sustainability really is reducing carbon emissions and fossil fuel. So when we look at your buildings, and Mark has done much of the assessment on your buildings, we put together kind of a high level list of areas of need, so to speak. And unfortunately, when your past bonds have not gone through, these systems have not just gotten better. They're actually continuing to decline. So you've got some circumstances here where you're really in a very much a compelling event that something needs to be addressed and relatively soon, because we're talking about systems that have failed or they're not working any longer, which is going to have a really a cost of inaction if you don't deal with it sooner than later. In this slide, we really try to break this down so that if I was talking to my mother, let's say, how she could relate to how bad either what the interior building lighting looks like. And so I'm not going to read through every one of these. It's on your screen. Mark, if you want to comment on lighting or HVAC controls, this is a good time just to talk to the board about your observations.
Yeah, when I looked at a lot of your lighting, I know it's really dim in most of the rooms. So one exciting thing that with the lighting, get the lighting levels up there that give you a nice LED, which is a full spectrum of light instead of just compacts, and you can get rid of the home noise. So your learning environment greatly increases, and we get it so bright in there sometimes that we actually have to dim them down because we get it so nice in there. I don't know if you ever done it at your house where you've actually changed out LED lights, everything. You can see so much better. That's kind of the fact we want to go. Additionally, that lighting is your cherry for energy savings. When you do your lighting, that's where we get a lot of energy savings that we can put other places. So that's why it's really important that we two different.
Anything on controls?
On the controls, lighting has come a long way. It used to be just put occupant sensors in, you have to wave your hands and all. None of that is true anymore. We're down to controlling each individual fixture. So we can even have it to where the teacher can dim the last 3 phase. We can have it do that by the screen. We can do day dimming on the window side. We can do a lot of stuff with controls. If nothing else, we can just dim the room, whatever the teacher wants, anytime that she wants. So we can have a whole gamut of different controls.
And then the HVAC control.
HVAC controls, your buildings are really ancient. Most of it's original, especially the pneumatic stuff. Mark could probably speak to this. He is having extreme difficulty running out of parts for your control system. What we can do is come in and put you in a whole new control system, so you don't have to worry about that. And that will give you control of the room level, so we'll be able to control your temperature. Also, it will control any new equipment we put in, and it'll control, replace a lot of the old controllers on your fan coils that are controlling the administration room and that kind of stuff. So help eliminate the hot and cold. Why isn't it working, not working? And the other added advantage that it'll give Mark is he can diagnose from probably his house off of his phone. He'll know exactly what to do. So the teacher's calling, this room's cold, he can look at right on his computer. He'll say, oh, looks, this valve's not working. And he can send someone to look at this particular valve at this moment in time right now. Where now he has to kind of guess what's going on. So there's a lot of added advantages to that. In addition, we can even put energy meters on them, on the buildings, and we can actually watch your energy use as your buildings are being controlled too.
The one thing I'll add too is that, you know, technology is integrating through all of our lives, really. Whether it's cars or refrigerators or what home appliances, what have you. These sort of, it's happening in buildings as well. And so for a facilities management standpoint, it's going to allow Mark to have more data-driven decisions and be able to be more preemptive in how he handles the needs of the buildings as opposed to reactive, if that makes sense. So it's a huge win for that department. Continue, go ahead.
So when it comes to the actual labor part of that, do you work directly with the contractors for installation? Like we're talking about the lights and whatnot, is that having another company or people come in to do that? Or is that something that you guys also provide?
Well, if we can hold that question, we'll cover it in just a couple
Okay.
more slides. I'm trying to be as efficient through this but informative as well. But yeah, that'll be part of our discussion really quick. How does this all come together and what's the approach? So moving on, we've got boilers and HVAC systems and transformers. Again, Mark, if you can speak to, I know that there's a couple boilers down.
Yeah.
One's actually has been removed, and the importance of having redundancy in that system. But if you can speak to that as an engineer.
Yeah, right now you have steam in all your schools. It takes steam and it runs it through a heat exchanger, makes hot water. Most of them. The only one that's completely steam is your high school. So all the heat is steam. And what we right now, one boiler in Hillcrest is out completely. It's actually been removed. Mark says we don't need it to take up space, so you remove that. The other building we're looking at is North Bay. The boilers are getting old, and one of them doesn't even work. Mark has tried for years to get technicians out there to fix it. No one can fix it. He can't find any. I mean, he's called everyone, and no one can figure out. So he's down. So you have two schools. They only have one boiler, which means if you lose one more boiler, you have no heat in the schools this winter coming up. So that's a real concern.
And those boilers don't fail during the summertime. They fail when you need them the most.
Yeah.
And so think about that. What's the cost of inaction when you can't, if you don't replace that boiler, what's the ramifications of a boiler going down, let's say in December?
Yes. So some things that we thinking about doing is getting rid of the steam altogether and just put hot water boilers in. Why make steam to make hot water? So we're just going to do it correctly. And that'll really reduce your maintenance, reduce issues that you'll have with that. But we have to get this done as quickly as we can, so you guys don't have heat this winter.
Okay, moving on. We just, again, we spent probably 5-6 hours on your campus. We spent a lot of time with Mark. Mark's been, they call Mark MacGyver, I think, because he's able to patch things together and so that nobody really notices anything behind the walls. But he's been fantastic to work with. Your whole team has been great to work with. But we just kind of put together a super high level, 30,000 feet assessment of where your needs are. And you can see it's not a short list. A lot of those sites say district-wide as far as some of those measures that that we think you should put some attention towards. But the big question is, okay, how do we do that? How do we do that without having to, again, we've tried to go out to taxpayers. We're trying to get capital. We don't have it. How do we go about it? And so this is where we get into really, and I give Kevin and his team a lot of credit because, you know, a lot of districts would just feel defeated and would just go same old, we'll just kind of work our way through this and patch it up and try to get by. But these guys are getting creative. The team is getting creative, and they invited us in, and this has been fantastic. But they're using a procurement strategy called energy savings performance contracting, which is made available through the state and through the Department of Energy. And the context of it is that what you're doing is that you're basically making building improvements, which would reduce the amount of utility spend that you have by putting in more efficient equipment, and also reduce the amount of operations and maintenance spend that you're currently spending, because now you've got newer equipment that might be under warranty and doesn't require service calls left and right. And you're taking that savings and actually redirecting that payment into paying for the new equipment to go in. So think of it as you're spending money with the utility, right? And then at some point, if by putting in new equipment, you're diverting a portion of that to pay for the equipment being installed. So what this allows you to do is really make substantial transformational changes today, rather than foregoing tomorrow, waiting for some sort of another bond to pass or for you to somehow collect money through a general fund. So again, upgrading your facilities without dipping into your budget, using future efficiency savings to pay for the project. And here's just kind of a visual on how it looks. You've got your pie for your annual budget before improvements, between maintenance costs and utility costs. By installing more efficient equipment, you're naturally going to see less energy use, less waste, and taking that portion to pay for the upgrades. So that at the end of the day, every year, your amount of savings is there to offset the debt service payment that you have. Okay. Let me go on to the next slide here, sorry. These sort of ESPCs, using the acronym, Energy Savings Performance Contracts, are, we see about 90% of them are used, are TELPs, basically tax exempt lease purchases. That's really your lowest cost of money. You can go, we do have deals, different deal structures and financial packages available through Johnson Controls. And we've already had a financial workshop with Tim just early on. But as we go through a process with a customer, we have more and more of these financial workshops so that we can tailor a financial model based on what the district's objectives are, or what the goals are from the finance department and so forth. But most often, 90% of the time, there are these tax exempt lease purchases. And as I've mentioned before, just going through the bullet points, annual projected efficiency savings are set up to meet or exceed the annual payments. Financing terms are anywhere from 15 to 20 years, but up to 25 years. And then we also do a blend of and leverage funds. So when we talk about putting together a plan for you, we're grabbing different funding streams from different areas. And I've mentioned those before: SB 1149, utility rebates, grants. Some people, some districts have been using ESPCs to supplement a bond. So they may get, let's say, 40 million on a bond, but then supplement it with an ESPC and be able to do, let's say, another $10 million worth of work that is self-funded, so that they can optimize their bond and get more work done for maybe what they thought they could get from their community. So that's that. I'll leave that. Any questions at this point? Okay. I included just a quick slide on, and this is probably to your question, Christina. How does this work? Johnson Controls is a design build contractor, basically. So what we do is we design the solutions. Okay, so we'll go in, look at all your buildings, and we've done it at a very high level. But to get to the kind of where we want to go with your district, we want to get more drilled down and get more actual hard costs. Maybe do even some analyzing of further analyzing of utility bills, or putting some data loggers on equipment to see how they're functioning 24/7. But what we do is we people like Mark, we go through your buildings, design solutions, find a list of facility improvement measures, have regularly scheduled workshops with Mark's department and come together with kind of a list of, okay, these are the items that are going to produce the most savings, the best return on investment, address the biggest priorities, what's maybe broke now and what maybe we can hold off for later. And then build kind of this kind of scope of work, so to speak. We'll also blend that with a financial workshop so that we'll actually do a cash flow for you so that you can see if it pencils out or not and provide kind of a financial case as well as a facility improvement case to it. So we do a lot of education on the financing side, a lot on the funding side, the design, we install, we commission. So we would hire subcontractors under us to do specialized work. A lot of those subcontractors will be referrals from the district. So if you've got some subcontractors you're very happy with, or that know your buildings quite well, we'll take your recommendations and use them. So the district ultimately does have the ability to select the contractors under this. We don't just go low-cost bidder. We find that can be a problem. And then we also, as a company, provide those kind of designer insights. We'll do some measure and verification after everything's been installed to make sure that what we've installed is operating properly and is yielding the savings that we are ultimately will be guaranteeing for you. And that's really the bottom bullet point there. This is a guaranteed performance contract, meaning that those first 3 years, which is mandated by the state, we will be tracking energy savings and performance. If for whatever reason, those savings do not yield what we commit to, Johnson Controls would be on the financial hook for that deficit, okay? If those savings exceed projections, then the district would get the proceeds for it. So,
Well, we sat through a SWAC kind of update after year 1 or 2.
we are going to be sitting down with Southwestern Oregon Community
Well,
College.
I
in
joined
September.
them. I joined them with that conversation, and they have experienced.
We are
exceeded-
projecting a cash flow, actually a surplus.
Yeah, it exceeded their guarantee. And I can't remember. It was like
I don't have the firm numbers yet, so don't hold me to the fire on that one. But that's what I'm hearing, is that we're projecting a surplus for that.
And I heard that as well. So.
And so a lot of times what districts or colleges will do is when they get a surplus, they'll put it in, let's say, a rainy day fund or something to address deferred maintenance down the road. They won't just spend it, shopping spree, but they'll save that. But the idea there is to have, so there will be some measure and verification. And that part of it, really, we act as like an energy advisor. So as we go in, we're looking at your utility bills, we're looking at your equipment. We're really an extension of your facilities department in the sense that so much of energy consumption is behavioral based. I could put in highly efficient equipment, but if your teachers or administrators are still cranking up the heat to 76 or what have you, or the air conditioning down to 64, it's kind of defeating the purpose. So we do kind of put some lanes together to keep you, within a modest area of flexibility for temperature control. But we do have a lot of educational aspects to it too, to help train your staff to think about efficiency more in a light that would help generate savings for the district. I think that's and that's where I get to training staff and providing ongoing maintenance services. As I get towards the end here, this is really the last slide. This is really a summary of the benefits that people see from an energy savings performance contract. I'll let you read through it, but I think the critical ones is that the outcomes are guaranteed. So in essence, we're shifting the risk away from the district onto Johnson Controls and letting us be accountable and responsible for the performance of the contract as noted. But then obviously there's all these other benefits associated to it. So with that, I think I'll take a breath, take any questions, and put my contact information out there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Like, what is the brand equipment? Like, what is do you have like a top equipment that you would prefer? And what steps down do you like, I've heard of train, like it's really good quality stuff. Do you start with good quality stuff and then work your way down, or do you start with the middle of the road?
Oh, okay, I like that question. Johnson Controls is also right up there too. That's pretty good quality. But let me just say though, we're more agnostic than we are just proprietary. When we work with a client, of course, we'd love to see our equipment installed in your operation. But you may be already working with Train, let's say, and you may be comfortable with Train. We can go out and purchase Train equipment. I'm just using your example. Of course, we want to always provide you with the best product available, but that may not be within your means or budget. So we'll advise you on really what's best available. What's the best bang for your buck? What's the best value? A lot these days comes down to what can you get your hands on? I mean, my God, some of these, maybe you're already hearing about this in other board meetings, supply chain issues, right?
Yeah.
It's not a myth, it's a reality. And so sometimes you have to make a trade-off between two brands that are, and we can advise you what's best. This is why we have these sort of workshops with facilities, because they may be comfortable with a particular brand and we don't want to disrupt that to put in something else. We'll work with them, get their solicitations, what they want, and come to some common ground on what makes sense. So does that help with your question?
So you train the staff that are going to be using it and maintaining it. So you design, build, you find the contractors and you put everybody to work. When the end product, the turnkey, who's trained to maintenance it and take care of it? Or do we call you guys back?
Oh.
And
Good question. I like that. We would do some initial training after everything's been constructed. So any project we do, we don't just pick up our tools and leave. Okay, we like to look at this as a long-term relationship. We do have a service branch out of Medford, and we also have a service branch out of Portland. So Medford would more likely be kind of your service branch, or we can you could contract with maybe one of the subs that install the equipment to have some sort of regular maintenance going on. But most of the equipment that we install, I see that they're typically under warranty for the first year. And then beyond that, we've had some customers who want the peace of mind of having, now that they've got this new equipment in, perhaps their facilities department doesn't quite have the bandwidth to maintain the equipment. So we're kind of there as an extension, and you can either contract through us on a service agreement or work directly with the subcontractor, but you do have that sort of backup, or you can try to do it all in-house, whatever you feel like you're capable of doing. But we'd like to think that we're with you throughout the long term and not just in for the construction and the implementation and then out, moving on to the next, where we want to maintain that relationship.
so training the staff that will maintain it, or like servicing it, making sure it's running.
There's training of that. There's training on the software. There's software upgrades. All that. I mean, it's again, we're getting into more technology now with our HVAC than ever before. Now with lighting, I don't think there's a lot of training involved with that. You flip a switch or no. But certainly on the HVAC, it's a little bit more technical. And so we are there for support. So if our own staff, for whatever reason, cannot support you in a way, we're there to lead you in the right direction to help support you, because you're making a big investment in your equipment. You want to maintain it. You don't want to just put all this new equipment in and go back to old habits, right?
And I'm not sure what kind of relationship we have with SWAC in terms of that. Again, if we'd have similar equipment, there might be some crossover around just some support or help. They also have their maintenance department that seems pretty knowledgeable. They're now having years experience now with this. So there might be some additional support that we could kind of piggyback on.
We
haven't really gotten, it's kind of more into the weeds of, we haven't really gotten that far into like, what are we gonna do yet?
But the nice thing, and Kevin brings this up, the college was in your shoes 3 years ago, okay? I went through the same process with them. They had very similar questions. They had a big time deferred maintenance need. And they went this route and they've been very happy with it. And so it's nice to know that there's a model in place, just 5 miles away from you, that have either gone through the ups and downs or the hard knocks and have come out on the right side of things. And so if you know anybody or have any, I know Kevin has relationships there. They're a good, I think they would tell you straight. If they had to do anything different, they would recommend that. But overall, I think they've been very pleased with their decision to reinvest in their campus, to modernize their campus. Their campus was pretty dated, just kind of like your school buildings. Granted that their job is to attract new students and retain students, a little different than yours. But at the end of the day, it's all about driving educational outcomes and making their college more competitive in the marketplace. And for you, I think it's just about getting these kids so that they can be more competitive in their marketplace.
So tonight we're looking at just sort of making the motion is to really move forward with the MOU for them to really dig into really developing solutions for us. At the end of the day, they'll have a plan that will come back to the board. And if that plan has some similar things to Southwestern Oregon Community College, we could ask, whether their maintenance or their president to come and chat with the board as well. As you're making, there is another final, like a decision, like a yay or nay on, do we do this or not? That is not what you're doing tonight. Tonight is really around, tonight is a commitment for them. There is some money that we will be spending potentially if we decide not to go forward with the project. They will do some recovery. And again, it's money that we could use. We have to do some of this performance assessment to utilize the Senate Bill 1149 money that they've talked about. So in many ways, the work that they're going to do, we would be able to use for other kind of, it'll kind of do a dual purpose, but we will have to pay them back for that assessment as they dig in and start to kind of do stuff that is more just broad, big assessment and more into the fine details. And so that's kind of tonight is to just permission to move forward with a commitment that potentially would be 50,000, I think, or up to about that, as we've estimated, if we decided to not move forward. And then if that cost would get rolled into sort of the full cost of this project, if we decided to say yes.
Not asking for a check today.
Yeah.
We don't have the checkbook.
Yeah, so there's the actual cost to this, the MOU, there is no cost associated with that. It's just sort of saying is, if we decide not to go with them, we have agreed to offset some costs that they'll experience kind of moving forward from today.
A higher level question just on the North Bend School District contracting process, where it's within the scope and purview of the existing contracting process to work with these guys. I'm not saying we're sole sourcing, but it's kind of, that's what it looks like to me.
They are an approved contract. I know, Tim, we already did this and we've had it reviewed by our attorney.
We did have the MOU reviewed by Stevens, our local attorney.
Okay.
To verify that we wouldn't fall in all of the contracts. And we're completely within those guidelines.
Okay, thank you for that. I feel better now.
And I will add too, that Johnson Controls has been selected by the state to offer energy savings performance contracting. We get vetted every 2 or 3 years by the state. It's a short list of companies. We're one of them and have been one of them for a number of decades. So not anybody can willy-nilly come in and say, offer the same sort of thing. It's something that the state takes very seriously, and they make sure that those companies that they authorize to offer that have been fully vetted. So you should see our proposal submittals. They're about this thick. So we have to, we get really scrutinized for that. But anyway, there's that safety net for there.
You go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's a really thorough presentation that you guys presented to us tonight, so thank you.
Oh,
very much
you're
for
very
all the
welcome.
information.
Thank you. I do have one additional question.
Yes, Mary.
The guarantee savings was for 3 years. Is that after the completion of the project?
I'm glad you brought that up. So the state of Oregon, through an energy savings performance contract, mandates that 3 years have to be measured and verified. So that's where the guarantee is. Groups can decide to extend that measure and verification. So like at the college, I believe they've got it extended through, let's see, they did a 25-year term. They have it up to 15 years, but they can cancel at after every year if they choose to. There is a fee for measure and verification. That gets calculated, and I can't tell you what the formula is, but there is a fee for it. So within our model, within our pricing model, you'll see the first 3 years with a line item of an amount for M and V. We'll just use the abbreviation for the first 3 years, and there'll be no cost after that. But if we decide with the district, do you want to have that more of a safety net, I guess, when it comes to that, you can extend it, make it 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years, or whatever the term is, but there's a cost to it. So when you see most of the time, if you're going to see some sort of equipment failure or drop off, it's going to be early in the stage. It's not going to be after it's been chugging along for 5 or 10 years. So Mary, did that
Yes.
answer? I think.
Are you gonna go over the MOU or should we just ask question?
I'm sorry, what?
Gonna go over the MOU or just ask a question?
We were hoping that you would approve it.
The only and you've kind of covered it.
I don't have any questions, but I'd be happy to take one if you're not ready to.
The financial commitment we're talking about, it's spelled out, it looks like it's 10 cents per square foot to do this. Essentially, it's a detailed review. So Mark, how many square foot have we got ballpark?
I think you've got 400,000 or so for all your buildings, right?
Okay.
Okay, so what that is, we're gonna be putting obviously more costs and time into developing a really strong business case analysis for the board to consider. Part of the requirement to access SB 1149 funds are doing very similar work under energy audit. So you got to submit an energy audit to the Department of Energy to get those funds from them. We are one of their approved auditors. So also with that, Energy Trust will, I think, provide some incentive dollars for those audits to be completed. So anything we may get from an incentive standpoint from ETO will be applied to that number as like a credit, or it actually go to you directly. So that's the thing with these different revenue streams. It's kind of the carrot to organizations to be more energy efficient. And so you have to kind of do these efficiency projects if you want these revenue streams available to you. So yes, we are projecting somewhere around, our fee is 10 cents per square foot. Joe.
And Jim, I would like to add that we would have ended up paying for this anyways to access 1149 funds in the future. So we have 1149 funds coming in now, but we would have to submit the audit.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm referring to.
What we get out of this is not only the ability to access 1149 funds in the future, but also potentially bring some better working conditions and better environment.
Make it more better.
Make it more.
Go ahead and make a motion. Oh, you have a comment?
I'd like to ask a gentleman a question. A lot of the Senateville precursors were built around electric vehicles. That is the school system going to be tied to moving in that direction too with this?
I believe that there won't be tied. There's going to be that, again, it's a carrot. I know that some of the school district, the larger ones, are already looking at electrification of buses. And so then you start talking about that path to net zero that I think the state would definitely have some preferences that the public entities go towards, and might have even some mandates 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now to follow.
Would all of those be built into the contract?
Not in this particular contract, no. There's no mandates that are going to be associated with electrification of transportation.
Just wondering about the stream.
Yeah, the state, again, on electrification, the district, the state just came out with, again, I think further grant opportunities. Again, I think some of this is rolling as part of Build Back Better, some of those funds. And so that's one stream, is if districts are interested in pursuing electrification of buses. Since we contract that service out, it's a little more complicated. We already have full propane buses, which is much more efficient and cost efficient than typical diesel buses. So electrification is something that, again, we'll maybe have conversations with our provider, Midco, in the future years. I think we're just going into our second year of our 5-year deal with them. So electrification is one, but I think districts are leveraging the Senate bill. It does open the gate, I think, for them to utilize these resources for funding, especially a lot of districts have their own busing. So it's another pathway to utilize the Senate bill, but they're gonna have to do again, kind of this audit around how long-term would you kind of pay for this? And there's just some requirements that you have to do to meet. So there is some strings attached to the Senate bill of accessing that money. And I'm not sure on the electrification. It's one of those things that we probably aren't pursuing because we don't do our own transportation.
The nice thing is that, I've kind of gone through some of your strategic plans, and I don't necessarily see path to net zero as being one of them. But just think about, as you become more energy efficient, you're already starting on that path, because even if at some point you decide you want to go through to renewables like solar and so forth, before you even do that, you need to make sure that your buildings are as efficient as possible. You don't want a building that's full of waste and then try to put a solar array on top of it. So by making this commitment and doing what you can within the means of the district, and really being good stewards of public funds, because you are doing this kind of within your own means, you're already starting on that path. And maybe in 5-10 years, you get more aggressive with it and put solar in, and maybe you electrify some buses and do all that fun stuff. But this is a good start. And you don't have to get from A to Z in one step. It can be in several steps.
So if we approve this tonight in the timeline, what's
What's the next step, or what
deliverable? Yeah.
happens, or?
When would you have under the client obligations, that paragraph? When would that be completed? Your audit and your audit findings?
Yeah, I think it's listed under the milestone dates, but we would have a report back to you. We're shooting for like 60 days from today.
Okay.
So,
Schedule thing.
So our November board meeting would
something
be
like that,
kind of where we're looking
November,
for a
yeah,
proceed.
exactly.
Yeah, notice
Having
to
that
proceed.
kind of, what is it called? Business case analysis is another word for it.
So just a really quick question on the proposed schedule.
Yeah.
The staff availability, so identifying staff to interview, what does that interview process look like?
It's more about understanding kind of where the problem areas are, just getting perspective from the district.
Okay.
It's not about us just coming in and thinking that we know everything. I do look at this as a collaborative method, a process where we're basically linking arms and jumping in the pool together. That's, I think, when you have collaboration, that's when you get the best results.
Yeah.
So,
It would be our building administrators. They have not heard about this. They're probably hearing about it for the first time tonight, because and so we've done a lot of internal work as just like, what's the feasibility of this? So our next step is involving our union groups around hearing about this, so they can tell us sort of where are some areas we hear it in bits and pieces. I think last night at our bargaining, it was like my room is just wildly fluctuation in temperature. Those are feedback that we want to hear. And again, ultimately, this solution needs to make sure, like, that's the question: will this address those kinds of issues that they hear? And so that will prioritize some of the work that we do, and that feedback will be helpful. But we haven't really pursued that. It's kind of like, I don't want to get people excited if at the end of the day we decide, we're just not ready for this, and let's just kind of wait, then we wait. We have not spent any money at this time. I'm sure they'd like us to say yes to this tonight so that we can pursue forward, because they have spent quite a bit of time with us and doing some initial assessment around just seeing this as a feasible opportunity for us. And I think their initial assessment says is, yes, we think you can do projects that will result in the savings to this.
Yeah. The last question. On looking at the schedule, under contract approvals, you get board approval. When do you have the cost estimate, essentially? A detailed cost estimate in this?
we would make the business case analysis to you on the November 3rd board
Okay.
meeting. And then where it says noticed final engineering results, that would be in February. Really, now we've got hard costs where we actually know what everything's going to cost, because we've costed out the equipment. We've gotten bids from subcontractors. There's that kind of 90-day window where we really get into where the hard costs are going to be.
Mhm.
But through the on the November 3rd, we will, with more time, we'll have better than high level estimates. We can probably be within a 5 or 10 or 15%. Well, who knows these days with the way inflation's going, but we'll be within a pretty good comfort level of knowing that how we look in November will be how we will look in February.
Okay.
So it seems like the next, just looking at this, would be an October board meeting update on this, and then a vote in November to
Yeah.
proceed.
That's what
That's
we
kind
were
of like
thinking.
tentatively, I think that's what I
Yeah.
see from this. And maybe it'll fluctuate, it'll be November, November, December, but the notice to proceed and do this will be done by before the new year.
What is our energy sources for our buildings? Is it power? Or is it natural gas, or is it
We have a combination.
all the above?
Yes.
Steve,
What powers our buildings? I think you were talking like diesel.
Building. Oh, natural gas in town and fuel oil out, North Bay.
Okay, would that be something that would need to be converted?
It would convert, I think in our project, it converts to propane out. of North Bay.
We, that's one of the things we want to study better. It's like we may, for North Bay, do a fuel switch for you. And it's been done. I know I personally was involved with the project at a school district up north where they went from diesel fuel to propane, and their spend, I think, on diesel fuel, at least currently, I believe it's around $5.50 a gallon. Propane's around $2.50 a gallon. So just by doing that fuel switch, propane's a little cleaner burning, so it's more sustainable. You could save money just on that. I don't want you to overlook water, though. That's like the new gold. So, and I don't have memorized really what the water costs are around here. But we will also study water and water conservation measures. So it's not just electric and gas.
Any other questions for the gentleman?
I'll make a motion.
Have at it.
I move to authorize the district to enter into a memorandum of understanding to develop a design build energy savings performance contract with Johnson Controls JCI.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and it is second. Any further debate or questions? Negative. Okay, move on to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it was a 4-0 vote. Affirmative.
Thank you.
It passed. No, thank you for the time, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Okay, item 8, school level COVID-19 management plan, no action.
Yeah, so let me give you just a kind of what we're here tonight. We have some plans that are due to the Oregon Department of Education due later this month, and some assurances, and I think we post them on the web. And part of that process is to get some feedback. And as you know, well, I was prepared to come here today to tell you that we were in medium level, kind of this community level spread. I got notice right before I came here tonight at 4:20 p.m. that the Coos County is now back to a high level. And so I'm just going to this is what came from me today. It's basically a recommendation from the CDC, Oregon Health Authority, and the Oregon Department of Education recommends the following when you're in this process. Implement universal indoor masking. So that's their recommendation. Offer vaccination clinics or facility access to students and staff. Consider implementing additional layers of protection. So those are things like airflow, training, doing other things. I think we talked about, local social distancing. Then retrain. The next thing they say is monitor unusual absences. They give us a little guidance around some absences and where that, again, could trigger some additional things that we do. And they give us some little measures to look at when we're in high. They also recommend that we hold events like back to school, conferences, fundraisers online rather than in person. And if we are going to hold in person, make every effort to hold the events outside. So that's under this sort of high level. And so the plan that we're asked to permit, it's pretty lengthy. Each school's required, in addition, also our charter school needs to submit a plan to the state. And there's 3 elements of it. Is what are you going to do just when we're in low, right? So there's not high transmission, we're in medium or low. What do you do to sort of universal? What are you doing as a school district? So we need to have that plan in place. Then when we get to this high, we need to submit that plan. Same kind of things. What are you doing about masking? What are you doing about, there's that list you saw in the plan. So we need to put that plan together. And then what do you do as you transition out of high into some other level? So we go from high to medium. Do we maintain or keep or do whatever? And so we need to submit that. You saw the initial plan, and there's some draft elements to that I've included, that we've worked with the nurses prior to, we saw this coming in June. So we worked on some of this before they left for the break. The principals have had a chance to start looking at this as they start to think of what are we looking at school. But some of these precautions, the big things that we're going to do, are we going to require students or staff to wear masks? is something that I don't want individual schools to make that decision. That needs to happen either through the community and with board support. So really tonight I'm here to kind of like talk about, well, what do you see if we're in this high? What would you like to see us? I'll just give you a couple examples of things. We're not necessarily recommending masking as it's said here, because I'm not sure that that's super popular. But what we would do in a high right today, what we were thinking is we would put up signs that would go up. So a very clear indicator that, hey, everyone, alert, we are in this high transmission, to at least signal people to around, hey, let's, if you were thinking about wearing a mask, this might encourage you, hey, and we'll have masks out on a table, grab a mask, you might be encouraged to mask, we're in high transmission, and you can make that choice. We would also put out, we have hand sanitizers that are, on carts or on those old poles. They died by the end of the year. And so instead of having them out all year, when we're in high transmission, we put those out in our buildings. They're kind of everywhere. Again, not necessarily to say, hey, hand sanitizing is the way to stop this. It's more of a signal and reminder that says, hey, we're in a little bit higher transmission, and we want you to be a reminder of some of these other precautions. The other thing would be is recommendations around maybe during high transmission around larger events in the school. We would either postpone or try to make an attempt to move them outside. So those are the kinds of things we're thinking about. Is maybe we, again, field trips. Are we doing more internal stuff in or outdoor events versus in this high transmission? Do we do stuff where all these kids are crowded in a place together? The other thing that, again, we'll talk more with schools around social distancing. It is super challenging as they create schedules to try to, the number of kids we have around, what does that look like? So we have a meeting next week to talk a little bit about some of those things. So again, I just wanted to really tonight, the board's input on what would you as a board like to see us do as either universal, or as we get into this high transmission, what would you either like to see or not like to see? I guess either one of those would be fine. So I'll take questions on that. That's ultimately, we don't really have plans to share and post yet. They'll be posted by the end of this month. And so again, this was sort of our only opportunity to really get feedback, and then we'll share the plans out to our community.
Well, my first deal on it is there is so much information in this packet that was given to us, and I would like all of the board members to be able to have input on this. I think we should go to a work session, frankly. I'm personally more inclined to have choice rather than some of the things that we have in the past and what caused a lot of problems at school. And I got an issue with some of the items, such as face coverings will be required for unvaccinated staff. I have an issue with that one. So
we left some things, again, that's the feedback I'm looking for tonight. We left some of those that had been in place under our previous agreements, even as we did this agreements with our staff. And so some of those we left because we've had previous agreements, but I certainly, again, that's kind of that feedback we're looking at. And I haven't really gotten the feedback from our whole staff on this as well.
right, and then you had some changes at 420 today, and how did you receive some changes?
I get this, again, this sort of happened now twice this summer. When Coos County enters into high level transmission, and there's a chart, if I can forward you the email that they send me. There's a chart that you kind of go to, and when you reach cases greater than 200 and new cases above 10%, you get into this high category. If you're above 200 cases, but you're less than 10% new, then you're in medium. And then they're sort of not available for low. So we are kind of at that, we are at 12.2% new cases and 245.01 cases that they have. So it's a CDC chart that the state of Oregon is kind of working with the Oregon Health Authority. And they basically say, hey, Coos County, you're in this. They send it to me, all their other superintendents in the county and local health department. So I saw Dr. Arden, I think Anthony Anton was listed as one of the recipients of this email. So yeah, that's how we get that. So they are watching, and so certainly the state knows, hey, you're in high transmission. What are you going to do about this? And I guess they'll be watching to see kind of how schools, are we able to stay open? Do we have huge number of illnesses and sickness? I don't really know we haven't really had a ton of conversation at the state level with this. I mean, we're asking for these plans because we know COVID isn't gone.
We haven't updated now that we can tell that the vaccines are not helping. So I don't think that it would be appropriate to require students or staff to receive the vaccines. And I don't think that it would be appropriate to have the vaccines clinics on campuses.
So the vaccination is mandated, that rule has not changed and it will be required for staff. So either the vaccination or the exception. So that has not
Even though
changed.
the data proves that that is.
Correct. That is not, again, they're saying it is required and that law has not changed. And then again, you see the encouraging, they're not saying like you must have vaccination clinics on campus. They're basically saying is they're encouraging, recommending
We
that
don't
you
have
provide
to have
access.
vaccine clinics on.
We are not required to have vaccination clinics on campus. We have our health, our health clinic that offers that. We're not as a clinic, but as an opportunity. We don't have to offer, again, that's just recommended
Are
from
you
the state.
planning on having them?
We haven't made any decision on that. I mean, again, I'll take guidance from the board, certainly on that.
So the,
Oh, go ahead. In regard to the exceptions or exemptions or whatever we're calling it,
Mhm.
this go around. So all of the new hires that are coming on staff, are they required?
Required to either have vaccination, proof of vaccination, or they need to fill out an exception,
Yeah.
whatever it's
The
called.
exception forms are readily available and explained and.
I don't-
such, or that's-
Yes, I think they know, like, I know our HR department, Tim, they know that this is a requirement. I'm guessing I see our administrators are sharing that. That's a requirement. They're sharing them upon hire. So yes, they're well aware of it. What we haven't saw, like, we have an MOU that basically said you're going to do these other things. Universal masking, at the time we signed that and the vaccination, universal masking was required. And so the requirements in there are sort of holdovers of when masks were required for everyone. We basically said, well, if you're unvaccinated, you don't take it off during lunch and you don't eat with kids. And we had some of those rules. We're not sure if that's appropriate now. And again, maybe we do some things if we see more staff being sick. Do we institute some things? We watch some of these measures? Because at the end of the day, I know you want to keep schools open too. Will N95s required for staff when we hit this transmission level as a last ditch effort to try to not close school because I don't have enough staff? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that would be maybe some of the conversation that we're going to have as a group. And certainly that feedback for you was certainly helpful. If you want to say no mask, don't require it, we would, we're not really going to be supportive of that. I'm certainly comfortable with moving forward with our team on that. So
does this have to be finalized before the start of the school year, with the
I-
timeline on this plan?
I don't know about finalized. I'm going to have to submit that says we have an initial plan in place. I think it's probably one of those things that we can revise at any time. I don't think the
So-
state, I have to
Right.
post it. I don't think it's not that rigid. They're basically saying is you just have to have a plan. And so I'm sure they're going to check to make sure that we have it posted and that we have it submitted. But beyond that, I think we have the opportunity to certainly revise that as we move along.
In the development of this, have we received much feedback directly from parents, or has it mostly been staff who've kind of developed?
Yeah, I haven't done an outreach to parents at this time. We certainly could add that to this component. This was one that we weren't really kind of watching to see, kind of seeing if we were going to be in load. Maybe this was not going to be as big an issue. I was really excited when we got moved out of high this summer, and we were at high for a little bit and then we moved out of it. And I was hoping that we would start the year not being high. I hope we do. It's weeks to week, this changes. So I'll be monitoring it just to see, because I think the state's going to pay more attention when we're in high transmission than if you're in medium or low. They're probably not going to be watching things. So I don't know. I'm not sure where this is headed really, in terms of sort of some state or OHA, like our health department, their oversight to this. We really moved away from kind of connecting with our health department. They moved some of their staff. Contract tracing all kind of got dropped. I think it just got overwhelming as the school year ended. And so I'm not sure where we haven't had a conversation with our local health authority yet. We probably will as a more region, all of our superintendents will, to see what are they really looking for.
Is that who's health and wellness?
Who's Health and Wellness is our local health authority.
So I think it's my turn to chip in on this.
Sure.
As it's been I've discussed before, I believe masks are a personal choice. So if the teachers want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Cloth mask, we could talk about the efficacy, but what I've read is it's marginal at best and harmful at worst due to CO2 buildup and bacteria. So I'm all about personal choice on masks. And I don't want to see any mandates on our teachers for masks, personal choice. Same on the vaccine. That is absolutely a personal choice item in my mind. If you want to get vaccine, go ahead. When this first got going, there was no longitudinal studies, and now there's some data coming out, particularly with people surprisingly 25 to 40, which I find disturbing. So absolutely, I don't think the school board should be involved in mandating any vaccinations. Because I think there may be some, it's a personal choice, and I look at
The
potential.
the state has taken care of that for you, so.
So, okay. That's where I'm at. So when did we want to talk about this again, or do you have enough?
I mean, it
input?
can come. I think this is one that, again, we'll kind of start to work on a plan. We'll come back and give you, here's where our staffs and our school plans basically landed on this.
Yeah.
And certainly an opportunity to have additional feedback. We'll talk about gathering. I mean, I think you probably echo the voices of a lot of our parents. I don't know if I need to hear that from 1,000 people. I think we get the message. We'll try to create and craft a plan. That maybe tries to address this. And again, whether we suggest something more as we get kind of to a more dire place, and I know our principals, I'm guessing, are worried about that as they saw it coming to a head in the spring. Do we want to see anything? And I'm not thinking mandating for any kind of kids. I don't necessarily see that being super functional, but do we do something for staff if we get to that level? And I don't know, again, that might be the one area that we maybe have more conversation about. But that can happen. We'll see I'll let our team weigh in on this, and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And as soon as we have the plan to draft, we'll send those out, even though it's going to be before we have a board meeting, just so you see sort of here's where we initially landed on this. And then, but again, we'll kind of try to keep in alignment with what we heard tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Any other comments on topic number 9, or excuse me, 8? Okay, we will move on to item 9, renaming the North Bend High School Hall of Champions. It is an action item. Mike Forrester and. Nice to meet you, sir.
Well, I'll start by saying, August 23rd, meet the Bulldogs at 6 o'clock. And September 2nd, first home football game, no mask required, at least at this point. So, and if we
That
do
is
require
good.
masks,
Yeah.
you're all welcome to come help me enforce that. So anyway, so those of you that don't know Boyd, Boyd was the athletic director before I was for
14 years.
14. Jeez Louise, I was going to say 18, but and I would just tell you that Boyd will probably get mad at me for telling you this, but when you come onto our campus, it was interesting tonight. We're talking about facilities. I've been to most of the 4A schools in the state, a lot of the 5A schools in the state. And I think when you come onto our campus to look at our facilities, our athletic facilities are as nice as just about anybody in the state. And I would tell you a lot of that is because of the work that Boyd and others did. But he's certainly been a huge part of that. So the Hall of Champions is what we're here about tonight. I'm going to give you just a little bit of a background and then let Boyd speak about how we came into the Hall of Champions. We had at a football game, I don't know, must have been 18 or so, 16 years ago, our grandstands got hit. And at the end of a game, last game of the year, I think it was the last game of the year. And we found out we had to tear the grandstands down, old wooden grandstands. So we had no grandstands and we didn't have any money to replace the grandstands. So Boyd, as the athletic director at the time, reached out to some individuals in our community and formed what is now known as the Stadium Committee. And that committee started making phone calls, started sending out letters to raise some money. And so at that point, I'm going to let Boyd take over about how we came into a whole lot of help financially to replace not just those grandstands, but help with just about every other athletic facility in our district. So Boyd, go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. When that happened, obviously, we were out trying to raise substantial amount. The initial estimate for the east grandstands was about 650,000. And several people stepped up and helped, some to the tune of $5,000 or $10,000. But getting to $650,000 is a pretty good leap. And the person that came forward at that time, the person that we're talking about tonight, Bob Sanders, not live in our area, but a North Bend alum from the late 1940s, came in and said, you know, I'm willing to go about 300,000. If you're willing, if you can show a little more community involvement. Well, that set us on a path that we never expected in terms of that kind of donation, and accelerated certainly the completion of the east grandstands, the concessions, the restrooms, that entry area. From that was kind of what we were going to do. And then we had a football playoff game, and Mr. Sanders had already talked to me about the west grandstands. In fact, at one time said, because they were wood, he said, do you think if you sat over there, you might get a splinter in your rear end? And I said, well, we've tried to paint it with our athletic club. And he said, why don't you look into what that might cost? And so we did. And he said, I'd support that project. And then he came back another summer and said, boy, the field doesn't look very good. And I said, well, we don't start watering it until late in the year. We're trying to conserve water. He said, what do you think it would cost to put turf in there? So we researched that, and he said, well, I think that would be a good project to do. So these projects, because of Mr. Sanders, became reality. And those things fueled other things in our school, fueled things to, you know, if you go down past the Hall of Champions, there's an area called the Howard Johnson End Zone Plaza. And that was really a coach's project. We sat out there on a Saturday, laid about 2,000 pavers, and that was coaches. So I don't want to minimize all the other people that donated to this. There was one in-service day where we had, I think, almost every administrator out there working, putting a new roof on a building. I mean, so it was really a community effort. But Mr. Sanders was certainly the one that made it possible. And so I went to him with a proposal for a new scoreboard and the Hall of Champions. And we thought it was actually going to be a fairly modest proposal. The most fanciest part of the project we thought was the new scoreboard with the video board. I think there are 2 high schools in Oregon that have that, and North Bend, the only one that has instant replay and cameras and those kind of things. And so that was the first piece that we got done in the Hall of Champions. We thought was going to be about a $300,000 project. Maybe have our construction class help with a little bit. It ended up being about a $650,000 project. He supported that, and some other projects even after that. But when the Hall of Champions was being built, I asked him if we could name it after him. And here's one thing you need to know about his donations. They were always made with 2 conditions. One is we spend the money on what he gave it for. And the second was that it remain anonymous. That if it ever became public who was giving us the money, that was the end of it. So through all these projects, it was always anonymous. If you walk around our facility, you'll see some little plaques. Like over near the West Grandstand, it says, this project was made possible by an anonymous North Bend booster. There's one down by that little football that says, the new turf was made possible by an anonymous North Bend booster. That was his conditions. So when we were working on the Hall of Champions, nearest completion, I asked him if we could name that after him. And his initial response was no. He did not want that. He just didn't want recognition. And so I said to him, you know, Mr. Sanders, this could really help us if you would let us put your name on this building to encourage others to donate. Not just because of who you are, because he was a very successful athlete and went on and obviously was a very successful business person from North Bend. And you want kids to see, hey, you can come from North Bend and accomplish anything you want to accomplish. And so after a little discussion, he said on 2 conditions. One is after I pass. That was his first condition. And the second was that it be made clear that my donation was not made with my name needing to go on the building. In fact, that was my request to him. So his donations to us changed a lot of things. I felt at our time there at North Bend in terms of how our kids looked at things, how our coaches looked at things, how our community looked at things to walk into a new facility, and helped the culture of our school. And so this is a person that it took a while after his passing for me to get a chance to visit with his children and ask them if it would be okay if we went ahead with this. Obviously, we weren't going to do it without their support. They have responded, yes. They're about as humble as he is. They don't want anything big and special. It's about their dad, not about them. But I can't think of anyone that could be more deserving and that supported us, across the board. Unbelievably generous. The weight room was remodeled because of a donation, the film room created. I mean, I could give you, it's a pretty long list of the things he helped us with. I hope it's a request that you'll support. I think it's an honor they would appreciate for their father, and I think it's one that, again, maybe helps Mike or people down the road to go out and say, people have stepped up and helped us like this. If you so desire, we'd love to have your support, and I think it's very deserving.
I do think one other thing is important to note here. At the time, Boyd came to the school board and with a request that the building be able to be renamed at a later date after an anonymous donor. So Boyd saw it in minutes and saw it in the agenda. I came in and looked, I couldn't find it. But I know that I'm confident that a previous board had agreed that was appropriate.
And it was in the consent agenda along these words: at the appropriate time, all the champions will be renamed for a prominent North Bend booster. There was no name because, again, at that time, our conditions were that everything be anonymous. It's kind of a generic statement in there, but I know I looked in to see if it had passed in the board minutes, and it had. So it's there someplace. We tried to cover that many years ago.
So I'd never heard of Bob Sanders. And so I went ahead through another party. I said, hey, ask your dad if you know this guy. And so I heard back third party that Bob Sanders was quite an individual and a man of good character and a real role, what I heard, he's a role model.
Yeah.
Truly. The only thing that came to me was that this person knew of Bob Sanders and said, did he want to remain anonymous? And that was the question.
Well, he did all through this time. This time.
And I guess for me, you've answered that.
Yeah, so, and that's why I went back to his kids, because I wanted to make sure they were comfortable with it. I didn't know if he talked to them about it, and I didn't want to presume and go ahead and do something if they were uncomfortable, if they were going to say, no, we don't think that's our father's wish. But yeah, and you may know him from University of Oregon athletics. There's a Jane Sanders softball facility that's named in honor of his wife. He wouldn't put his name on it, but he put his wife's name on it. Also a very big booster to Oregon State. So you can't just be a Duck or Beaver fan here and choose sides. He's been very generous to Oregon State also. Was.
I love this. This is just very sentimental, and I appreciate the history behind, you giving some history up to now and why this is important. So thank you for sharing that story with us.
I like the way Mr. Bob Sanders operated.
Yes.
I feel honored to get to be on the board to make this decision.
We did do like the research to say it's like if a previous board had agreed to this, we weren't necessarily going to bring this for an action item. But I basically, since they couldn't find it, I felt like our process, and we have policy on this, and it is is an action from the board. So it is ultimately your decision around, if you want to do this tonight or do some other further process. I know they would like to move forward with sort of the celebration and doing that together. So
So will all the plaques that say anonymous be switched out? to-
Maybe. It could be, that was his request when we built those facilities. And we didn't ask him for changing anything else, so I think that's a good piece of history probably to keep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I will make a motion. You guys are, all right. I move that the North Bend High School Hall of Champions be officially named Bob Sanders Hall of Champions as agreed upon by previous members of the North Bend School Board.
Second that.
Okay, there's a motion, there's a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
4-0.
And we'll keep you informed as Michael.
September 23rd, we'll have a ceremony at halftime of our football game, same night that we also induct 5 new members into our our North Bend High School Hall of Fame.
And 3 of his children, 2 sons and a daughter will be down.
Oh, that's great.
Like to be there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 10, board vacancy announcement. Little background, the board received a written resignation from Board Director Spencer Gordon effective July 1st, 2022. And I'd just like to thank Spencer for his time on the board. I valued his input, and we collaborated on a number of contentious items. And I valued the way he approached things. He's a man that has some excellent interpersonal skills, pretty unique. And he's a guy that's got a family of 4, his own business, got a lot on the go, but he'll be missed by the board. North Bend School District Policy BBC outlines the process for board member resignation. Per the process, the board will A, announce the resignation and declare the vacancy at a board meeting, which we're doing tonight. B, determine the procedures to be used in filling the vacancy. And there's a draft for comment on the next page that I'll get to. The North Bend District Policy BBBA dictates that a person is eligible to serve as a board of director if A, the person is 18 years of age and must be a registered voter and must have been a resident within the district for 1 year immediately preceding the appointment. Moving on. So it's recommended that the board publicly ask for letters of interest, what we're doing now, from qualified community members interested in receiving this appointment. And these letters will be received at the district office and reviewed by the board during an open work session. I'll get into a little bit more detail on that. At that work session, the board will also create a list of questions to be asked in public interview of each applicant. And the interviews will take place in an open meeting at a regular scheduled board meeting. Let's see. Policy BBE states that a board member upon appointment, 1, will be sworn in and seated immediately, 2, and will serve the remaining years of the term of office of the board member being replaced. This translates to June 30th, 2023 for this position. And this vacated position is scheduled to be open for election in the May 23rd election. So I guess before we move on, 2 actions, we'll announce and accept the resignation of board member Spencer Gordon effective July 1, 2022. And then following that, we'll discuss new board member selection process and timeline. So is there a motion to accept a vacancy?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept a vacancy on the North Bend School Board of Directors.
Second, there's a second, and I'll just read this out, the motion out of it here. In accordance with North Bend School District policies, I move to declare board vacancy to be filled by board appointment. All-
Second?
Yeah, I was just.
Okay,
That
sorry.
was your motion.
Got a little confused there.
I was just reading Robert's rules here. I'm getting confused.
Okay.
Okay, a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that passes. We accept the vacancy. So the second page of this topic was put together a little draft, a high level timeline and some process steps, and got some feedback from Kevin and Amy, which was very good. And I just thought I'd share that and open it up to board comment. And so on the timeline, tonight, we're the 4th of August, announcing the board member vacancy. August 4th to 7 September, we're requesting letters of interest from candidates. Communication to the public would include the timeline that we're discussing here, eligibility requirements. And candidates should email letters of interest to Board Chairman Jim Jordan and also the Board Secretary Amy Elliott. And Amy will be compiling a list. At the 8th September work session, we would review the letters of interest from candidates, develop questions for a public Q&A and the interview process that would take place. And then at the 15th September board meeting, we would conduct the candidate Q&A and then the board would vote to appoint the candidate. Board members have any thoughts, or do we want suggestions to edit this?
I know it will, but I already read it, so I was okay with it.
I do have a question, Board Chair. Would we be only accepting these letters by email, or are we also accepting email and notes? It was my impression that we would do it only by email. Therefore, we could not have any letters lost in the mail, that kind of thing.
Let's go.
What is your opinion on that?
Let's go with email only.
Okay.
Yeah. So can we have a consensus vote then that we'll utilize this timeline and high level process?
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay. Item 10 complete. Item 11, board comments.
Before we start a school.
Your silence is the conclusion of item 11. Okay, item 12, information only. We do have a work session virtual on the 25th of August. And then we have the first day of school, the 7th of September for grades 1 through 6 and 9. And there is a work session on the 8th of September to discuss the board vacancy process questions, essentially questions, and who will ask those questions at the 15th September meeting. First day of school for grades 7, 8, 10, 11, and 12 on the 8th of September also. First day for kindergarten, I remember that day, is the 9th of September, and then we'll have our board meeting regularly scheduled for the 15th of September. And with that, I will close the open session. And we will be heading toward an executive session for the 4 board members across the street. You guys are welcome to linger and talk amongst yourselves, but if you can do that out in the hallway so Amy can close up the room and head across with us. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.